Hello, I'm April, and I'm going to be your instructor for Understanding by Design, this online workshop. Hopefully, you went over the information for stage one and watched that video. And now we're going to go over the UBD template for stage two. Determine acceptable evidence. Let's get started. Stage two, determine acceptable evidence. Stage two is all about creating and defining the assessments that will be used in your unit, and more specifically, assessments that will provide valid evidence that the student has reached a level of mastery or understanding of the big ideas and concepts that you listed in stage one. So let's take a look at the template. Stage two, determine acceptable evidence. In your first part, the first section, we have the performance tasks. Assessments where students flexibly and intelligently use what they know in a new complex situation where higher order thinking and the use of content is required. Higher order thinking. Again, that goes back to the big idea and the idea of transfer and understanding and meaning making that we talked about in stage one. So, mentioning those, if you look on the left, desired results code, all transfer goals and all meaning goals. So, back in stage one, we listed different transfer goals and meaning goals and gave each one a code. This is where you're going to put that code, and that's going to inform the performance task, which is the next column. Performance task. How will students demonstrate their understanding, meaning making, and transfer through complex performance? Students will show that they really understand by evidence of, and this is where you're going to put the specific performance task, whether it's maybe a project or depending on the unit or what you're teaching, a specific type of assessment. This is where you will put that. And in our third column, we have evaluative criteria. What criteria will be used in each assessment to evaluate attainment of the desired results? Regardless of the format of the assessment, what qualities are most important? So, again, you're going to start on the left with your desired results code, thinking of those transfer goals and meaning goals that you want to accomplish. You're going to put the code here. Next column, you go to performance task. What task, what assessment are you going to use that will give evidence that the student understands and has reached those transfer or meaning goals that you put in the previous column? And then lastly, what evaluative criteria? What criteria, regardless of the format of the assessment, whether it's a project or a speech or whatever that may be, that shows that they have a higher level of understanding, what criteria are you going to use um, to judge them on or to accept that is evidence that they have reached the higher understanding? So we move down. Let's look at the next section. Other evidence. Here you place assessments of knowledge, skill, standards, and other goals that are not otherwise assessed by the performance task. So here we talk about knowledge, skills, standards. So that's, again, thinking back to stage one, your basic skills and concepts, some of your factual type information. So, like the previous section, there's this first column is for desired results code. So you're going to put your meaning goals and skill goals. And if we will come down a little further, you'll see skill and transfer goals, all knowledge and skill goals. This box got broken up a little bit. Let me go back up. Um, so again, we're going to map back to those goals. Start with that first. What is the goal? Next, what's our evidence that the student has mastered the basic information? They have that foundational learning. Through what other evidence? Quizzes, tests, academic prompts, observations, homework journals, etc. will students demonstrate achievement of the desired results. So the previous section, performance tasks, those assessments are more big concepts. Here's where, okay, how are we going to test that basic knowledge? And then in the third column to the right, other evidence evaluative criteria. What criteria will be used in each assessment to evaluate attainment of the desired results? Regardless of the format of the assessment, what qualities are most important? And as you fill in this template, then the boxes will move accordingly. That's why this one got a little broken up. So lastly, we look at the grading rubric. So you've outlined your meaning and transfer goals, your skill and knowledge goals, as well as the evaluative criteria. Now you're going to create a rubric. Pick one of your critical assessments and develop the rubric that you will be using to evaluate it. In your rubric, you should list the criterion that you will be using to evaluate the assessment, the levels that you will use, and a description for each level criterion. So rubrics are nice because they create a nice, a standard way to evaluate. It's easy for students to see where points are given or taken, what areas they may have excelled, what areas they perhaps did not do as well in. And if we look at our levels here, in this first column, this is where you would list the criteria. So you pick one of those assessments from the previous sections, and you're going to list the criteria, the evaluative criteria that you're going to use to grade this particular performance task. And here are the levels. In this example, exemplary, sufficient, needs revision, no evidence. And you always want to make sure you put no evidence. So for a student who doesn't turn in anything or leaves it blank, you want to make sure you give yourself an option to give 0 points. You wouldn't want to start with needs revision, so even someone that didn't give any effort earned points. That's why you want to make sure you include no evidence. And now that we're at stage 3, so that's the end of stage 2.